In today's episode, we have Shaun Khunkhun. He is behind Dolly Barton Silver, awesome silver junior mining stock, and all around very cool guy. I have to say, sometimes I hop off and on with interviews real quick, but Shaun and I got to talking for a while before. Awesome, inspiring guy, and we're going to have a great conversation talking about everything that is happening right now. I was saying that today the inflation numbers came out, and I was thinking to myself that there's everyone talks about currency wars between other nations, but I feel like the greatest currency war is inflation itself. But the war is being waged against humanity. It's being waged against the middle class and the average individual. So we're going to be talking about what's going on there. We're going to be talking about silver. You can learn more about Dolly Barton Silver right there down below. We'll link to their website. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Send it out in the YouTube universe so more people see it. Give us a comment down below that says "Go Silver, Go." And Shaun, it's good to see you.
I'm so happy to be here, Jake. As I was saying to you earlier, I'm a runner, and I've been listening to your interviews and your videos as I'm running so it's so nice to finally have a conversation with you and meet you. I'm a big fan of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You were telling me life's going well right now. Your kids are doing well. You're excited to be living your dream and running a silver company. So yeah, let me know before we get into it. Let me know what you're excited about right now. How you feeling?
Well, no, just there's times in life where everything seems to be falling into order, and this just happens to be one of those moments for I think for me, but for a lot of us. And it's just so nice to connect to you. And I think any viewer that's watching this, like they're awake, like they've come here for a reason. And I think we all kind of have the same vibe. And I think today's a day where we couldn't have picked a better day to do the interview with 6.2% CPI coming out, inflation raging as high as it has been for 30 years. And it's exciting because we're in this sector, but it's also really frightening for anybody who's not protected. And I think this was a moment this morning where investors flocked to silver, they flocked to gold, they flocked to that safe haven to protect themselves. So it's a pretty interesting time right now, Jake.
So one of the popular words is currency wars. Jim Rickards, that great author and thinker, actually wrote a book called Currency Wars. And traditionally, we think about currency wars from the perspective of, the dollar versus China or various currencies and trying to devalue them against one another. And as the new inflation numbers came out today, and more than that, because I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, my favorite restaurant now that used to do dinner every night has had to close dinner because they're having such bad labor shortages while simultaneously increasing the prices. So it's been obvious that, we're in this environment. But once I saw those inflation numbers, I said, you know what? The biggest currency crisis is what they're doing to currency right now, and the incredible devaluation of currency is actually a currency war that's being waged against essentially humanity, against the middle class, against your average person. And I wanted your take on that kind of thought and how you see everything that's taking place right now in these record-setting inflation environments.
Well, I'm a big fan of Rickards, and I think I have 4 or 5 of the books he's written. And one of the concepts that he's floated out is, and I'm not sure the order here, but essentially it's currency wars, trade wars, and then all-out wars. And I think it's a dangerous, it's a slippery slope. But you're absolutely right. With every central bank on the planet all at a race to the bottom, it's a war. The only safe haven that I see is hard assets, and my assets of choice are silver and gold. And in terms of inflation, so I coach my daughter's soccer team, and we had a particularly cold Vancouver morning on Sunday, and I thought it would be a nice treat to get the girls some hot chocolate. And this is a small team, right? We do graduated programs, so they're not playing 11-a-side soccer. Anyways, I went to go get 8 hot chocolates, Jake. And this is at McDonald's, and they're like $30. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And so inflation, I see it, we all see it, we all experience it, even though the Fed wants to tell us it's transitory or it's limited to single digits, it's not. And you know what? For me, what brought me to this industry was I wanted to maintain a middle class lifestyle for myself and my family. And I thought the way I could do that was through protecting myself through the metals. Um, but it's, I think it's a really sad state of affairs. It is a war. It's a war on the consumer. It's a war on the middle class. It's a war on the poor. And yeah, these are, and I really think we're providing a great service in that we're educating people that, there is a way to protect yourself. Silver at, under $30 an ounce here is a tremendous way to protect yourself. And if the only thing you do from watching this video is go out and get yourself 1 ounce of silver, I think we've done a great service here.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch what's happening, and of course we could talk about it all day long, but I think we're at a point now where your average individual that maybe even thought the idea of runaway inflation was for kooks or conspiracy theorists, whereas now nobody can ignore the fact that everything they're buying is increasing. I stop and I could get lost in that forever of how it's going to play out. And I have gotten lost in that a lot because I don't see how it ends. They're not, Max Kaiser always says you can't taper a Ponzi scheme. It's impossible to taper a Ponzi scheme. And so they're never going to actually be able to do that. And so my feeling is that basically we're going to push this thing and it's never going to stop until eventually it truly breaks. And I think we're getting close to that. And when I look at it, I go, all right, what can I control? And to me, we talked about 3 areas that you were mentioning. You said one was your health, one was your family, and one was your maintaining your lifestyle. And to me, that's financial independence. One of the areas that's always interested me as a way to not only preserve that with silver, but also increase it with mining stocks. Yet mining stocks have traded sideways from about the $28 to $29 highs of silver. And silver hasn't caught the inflationary bid that this type of currency crisis environment that one would think it would happen in silver. We did see some nice move today as maybe people psychologically are starting to sink into the fact that inflation really is here. I wonder, why do you believe silver is still a good investment moving forward? And what are your expectations?
Okay. Well, before I answer that question, just a couple of thoughts, because you said a lot there, and it made me think of a lot of different things. First of all, there are tools to fight deflation, right? My biggest concern is when the inflation really kicks in, what tools does the Fed have to curb inflation when we've got record debt levels? So that's the first thing. The second part of that is, I look at, where investors need to start getting into a mindset is we need to get away from this instant gratification, this second by second, minute by minute momentum trading. We need to get into getting into companies that have solid balance sheets, that have good management teams, and not be concerned about how companies or assets are trading on a weekly or quarterly basis, but really look at it from take a step out, and you don't have to go that far out. And I think silver's performed really well. And I think that the mining equities are showing us. I'll give you an example. So silver was up 44% in 2020. A good highly leveraged silver equity would outperform that by 300%. So, I think for myself, silver is protecting investors. To answer your question, why silver is the investment of our lifetime right now in this moment is as we're getting this destruction of currencies, it's protecting us through its monetary hedge, But on the other side, there's growing industrial demand. So silver is truly, the specialist metal on the board, and one of the specialist investment classes that there is out there. So I think there's tremendous value here on a multiple of metrics. Just taking the silver to gold ratio as one aspect, silver is extremely inexpensive relative to gold at this moment. So I think there's tremendous upside. I think there's big upside for gold. Silver's going to outperform.
Yes, silver and uranium, I think, are the only two commodities that are essentially 50% or more from their all-time highs. Whereas we're kind of in this everything bubble where whether it's houses or whatever it might be, the value of pretty much everything is exceeding its all-time highs, yet silver's half of that. I would imagine, as someone who runs a silver company and has assets and their future staked on an asset, seeing that it's half the price of its all-time high, while simultaneously there's such an increase in projected demand from EVs, renewables, etc. What catches your eye on the thesis the most, and what brought you to it?
Well, what brought me to it was experience. So I went and I worked for a gold miner in the 2000s. And I watched that gold miner go from 7 cents a share to $5. I watched that.
Oh, jeez.
And I watched that gold miner go from inception to $1 billion for market cap. And we had to work really hard over 6.5 years to build up a 600-person team, to raise $500 million, to get a mine into operation. And all that hard work, that blood, sweat, and tears. As a personal investor, I made as much on a silver investment inside of 6 months as a passive investment that I did helping to build a mining company. So I told myself that the next time I thought I left the gold market and I focused on base metals from 2011 to 2014. I came back to gold in 2014. By 2018, Jake, I said, you know what? It's time to go all in on silver. And I was deliberately picking Dolly Barton because of its grade, because of its location, but I wanted as much exposure to high quality silver ounces because I saw what it did last cycle. And if you go back, you study history, what happened in 2011 was not unique. It played out in 1980, it's played out throughout history. And so silver has got tremendous leverage. And it's really rare. Most of the silver produced in the world, 70% of it is produced as a byproduct. So having a vehicle that's really giving you real exposure to precious metals, particularly silver, is quite unique. It only represents about 30% of the silver market. And most of that silver is in places that I don't want to invest, in countries like Argentina. So to find a project in Canada is quite unique.
Now, what's the deal with Dolly Barton? You guys, and especially I think with multimedia this time around, and the compelling narrative of junior mining stocks. And now that we have media, Dolly Barton is a name that a lot of people do know for a junior mining stock. So what's the story behind it, and why is it special to you?
Well, before I go into the history, I just think that from the investing side, what attracted me was when I took over as CEO of Dolly Barton, February 16th, 2020. So about a year and a half ago. The reason I took the job was Dolly Barton was trading at 37 cents per ounce in the ground. And I looked around the peer group, Jake, and the peers were trading at 75 cents. So I thought something's wrong here. Why is this company needs to be, the story needs to be told. And by telling the story, we'll get in line with our peers. There's an opportunity there. But more importantly, in a bull market, silver can trade at $3.30 per ounce in the ground. I'm talking about real mineable ounces. So I thought, okay, there's an opportunity to get up in line with our peers. But if we move into the type of market I think we're moving into, there's a 10x opportunity from where we were trading in February. Now, that's just on silver. That's if the company, we sat on our hands and we did nothing. Okay. But what I did is I brought in a team of explorationists that work in the area, that know how to find more silver. Because even if the price of silver stays flat, if we find more inventory, we'll be valued more. So if we take the resource, which is currently at 44 million ounces, and I've stated, Jake, my goal, I've got two goals at Dolly. When I first came in, it was to capitalize the company. So in my first 6 months, I raised $26 million. And I didn't raise it at that 37-cent valuation. I raised it at a higher valuation, so it was non-dilutive for my shareholders. The second part of this is I'm on a quest for 100 million ounces of silver. I want to take our 44 million ounces. I want to take it to 100. And Jake, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to take it to 100. I'm going to exceed 125 million ounces. We are going there, and there's two ways I'm going to get us there. One, we can get there through drilling. There's a lot of discovery potential. You talk about the history. This area has been known for 100 years, but it's seen very little exploration work. There was a big deal in the mining sector in the neighborhood 2 days ago where Newcrest bought Pretium for $3.5 billion. This is just up the street, set in the same rock package as Dolly Barton. So big M&A deals are happening in the area. And this goes back to the other part of it is, if you're a mining company, you're depleting your inventory every day you go to work. Okay. And it's no different than Facebook buying Instagram or consolidation you see in other sectors. Miners buy smaller miners. They want to enhance their pipeline and they do it through acquisition. So Dolly's a takeover candidate. We've been subject to a takeover before, and we'll be subject to takeovers in the future. But it's my job to try to build up this company, to build up the cash balance, to build up that mineral inventory, so that when we do decide to merge up with a larger mining company, we're doing it at the maximum valuation. We've exploited every opportunity, not only in our property, but in the region.
What is for an investor, what do you believe is the most important parts of the theme of silver? Is it that there's less silver mines out there? Is it that there's an increase in the EV and battery metals and solar? What are the top themes that you think are gonna be the wind in silver's sail as it hopefully not only catches its $50 or so high, but passes it? What are the themes there?
It's everything you just mentioned. It's even without all those elements of the green metal trend, it's silver is right now you're in a situation where there's not a great deal of incentive for a company to go out and look for new ounces. At these prices, there's not a lot of operations on the planet that are pure silver mines that are spitting out a lot of cash. So the price of silver, and this is what I saw in the gold price back before the gold breakout in May of 2019, with the average producer's cost around $1,000, when the price of gold was around $1,250, the margins were not, the incentive wasn't there to grow or to explore. And I'm seeing the same thing in silver right now. And so, you're going to need a silver price that's $30, $35 an ounce at a minimum to encourage that type of growth, exploration, and development in the silver space. And you look at the leverage and what companies are worth and how mining companies work in terms of their price sensitivities to metal prices. That's where the big returns come for investors. And that's why, on a day like today where the price of silver might be up, 1.5%, a company like Dolly Barton's up 10%. And that's the leverage. And that's because of those sensitivities to the price of silver. But Jake, it's everything. It's, if we want to keep producing the amount of silver to satisfy the demand from investors who are looking to buy monster boxes, guys like yourself and me, to the end users who are using silver in industry and the ever-growing uses for silver in industry, it's really a two-headed monster, but everything's going up, and in a world where non-fungible tokens and Bitcoin and all these assets are trading at absurd valuations, it's laughable that silver is at half the price it was 40 years ago. It makes no sense.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's still where it is? Where it is happening?
if I took the contrarian view and I looked at the opposite side and I say, well, maybe silver got ahead of itself in 1980, okay, and maybe it shouldn't have been $50 an ounce, but it went back there in 2011, right? And that was 30 years after the fact. So um, I don't know. I think that I don't want to really go down the rabbit hole of price manipulation and conspiracy. But I do think there's a discrepancy, not just in silver, but in a lot of commodities between what we're seeing quoted on the digital price or the paper market versus the physical market. And I'm sure that if you try to get your hands on some physical silver, Jake, you're not going to get it for 24 or $25 an ounce. It's not possible. And what I really celebrate is champions in our industry like Keith Neumeyer that are saying, at different times, throughout the year, we're not selling silver down here. We're going to keep it in inventory. We need as an industry to be brave and to not play into the hands of the paper manipulators.
Yeah, I remember when Keith did that and withheld that, and that was a very interesting and eye opening time. I think it helped show a lot of people that there is a big discrepancy between the paper and physical price. But nonetheless, one of the things that you said was the M&A, and there's not a lot of silver mines that are coming online, and big companies need to continue to do M&A to buy smaller companies and replenish their reserves. And you set a price of, I think you said about $35 is the price at which the market that can be incentivized to do the level of exploration and bringing mines online. And I've never heard somebody quantify a price with that, but I know, as someone, I'm also big investor in uranium right now, that price, there is a price that's quoted for uranium at about $60 or so is the price to bring these companies online. And so I thought it was interesting that you quantified a price there. So you think it's got to get to about that level for there to start to be attempts to adjust the growing structural deficit of silver?
Well, I think I look at some of the largest undeveloped silver projects that are out there on the planet, and there's no incentive to build these mines unless you get a sustained price over 30, and I would argue $35.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's really is a key word there, right?
What's really interesting, though, yeah, sustained. What's really interesting, though, is this is not something that's unique to silver. I've got a colleague that is on a copper think tank, and he sits on this think tank with the largest copper producers in the world, and they're saying, look, there's no issue with copper inventory this year or next year, but if you look out 5 years, Jake, there's no copper coming online. And if you think about that, 70% of silver is thrown off as a byproduct from a zinc mine, a lead mine, a gold mine. And if those mines aren't getting built, where's the silver coming from? So then we look at the pure silver mines. A lot of them are small. They're not feeding the market with the amount of inventory that there's demand for. So I think, to really incentivize some of these, if you look at the top 10 largest undeveloped silver projects on the planet, that's the number that I come, because you look at a capex for a mining project, it's always over budget, and it never comes in the time that it was scheduled to, right? So if we really get honest with ourselves as an industry, that's the price that I think is going to incentivize exploration, new discoveries, and start moving a lot of this inventory that's in the ground. And we need sustained prices. And we look at consensus, but we also look at numbers like 3-year trailing prices. So, if we're looking at silver right now, we're looking through the lens of $16 silver when we evaluate projects, because we have to do so because you've got to go through a conservative lens when you look at these projects.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking to, as I've grown this channel and talking to people running gold and silver companies such as you with Dolly Barton, because the mindset is different to, a speculator in silver, in that the fundamentals surrounding the fact that you own a company that has ounces in the ground are very great. The price has went up. It went up by a lot last year, 40%. We're seeing this long-term demand continue to grow. You're saying you evaluate at 16, but we're here now. And so as a CEO of a silver company, I would think that even whereas maybe some sentiment on silver bugs that just want the price to go up quicker may dissipate, as a mining executive, I would think, one, you're licking your chops at it, but two, someone like yourself that, we were talking about your focus and how you take care of your health, and you're running and lifting weights every day, and you got a great family life. Like, you're a methodical person, right? And so what is the method and what's the strategy of execution behind Dolly Barton capturing and seizing this opportunity, this moment in time that's playing out in the silver market? What's a strategy there for you?
Great question. So we're moving into a world where projects are being denied all over the place. So I think the first criteria, if you want to mine, is going into an area that's been mining for a long time. So we're in an area that for the last 100 years has been mining. Okay. And we're also in a part of the world where it's the greatest mineral endowment on the planet. So if I drew a 25-mile circle around Bruce Jack, which was just acquired by Newcrest for $3.5 billion, and within that circle encompasses KSM. Jake, there's 200 million ounces of gold, 800 million ounces of silver, 5 billion pounds of copper, 50 billion pounds of copper. So we're in an area that has a lack of infrastructure. There's ice everywhere, but the infrastructure's come in, the ice is melting, and it's home to to the richest deposits in the world. So Dolly Varden's in an area that's in its infancy, yet we've already got 50 million ounces in the ground. And so there's tremendous exploration potential. I look at a company, I don't know if you're familiar with Skeena Resources. They're in the neighborhood. But 2 years ago, Jake, that was a $35 million company. Okay, today they're almost $1 billion market cap in 2 years. They've got the SK Creek mine, which is just up the street, set in the same rocks. We are reawakening the Dolly Barton Silver Project like Skeena reawakened SK Creek. And I think that, when I started, we had a $20 million valuation. Today, we've got a $65 million valuation. I think we're going to see exponential growth. And there's two, like I said, I'll reiterate this. There's two ways I can do that. I can drill and find more, which we did last year and we're continuing to do. And in terms of catalysts, I've got 10,000 meters of drilling that's going to be being reported in the coming weeks. The other way I could really grow this company is through mergers and acquisitions. And there's some tremendous opportunities in the area where, why build two mills if you can only build, you only have to build one. There's tremendous synergies when you work together and you develop with a single hub and feed that hub by multiple spokes. So, that's really the path for Dolly Barton. I'm going to get this company to 100 million ounces of silver in the ground. We started with 44. We're going to do it quickly, and it's we've got a team of scientists and engineers that are experts in these types of rocks. So we've got the team, we've got the treasury, and we've got the shareholders. Eric Sprott is close to a 20% shareholder. Hecla Mining, which is they're in the business of securing more inventory. They own 10%, over 10%. So two shareholders own 30% of the company. And then there's some institutional precious metals investors that own another 50%. So 85% of the company is held by 6 or 7 groups. And so that's a pretty compelling share structure, so that when the price of silver moves, there's only 15% on the float that retail investors can pick up. And that's why you get the shares of Dolly Barton going from 16 cents on a low last year to $1.17 on a high. And it's a very, very tight structure.
Yeah, always nice to have Hecla and Eric Sprott on your side. And speaking of that of Eric Sprott, arguably the most successful natural resource investor, or at least one of them ever, multi true multi billionaire. Um, you were just on a little fishing trip, and you got to be there with Eric on this fishing trip, and you know you've also been able to obviously work with him. He's a co-owner in your company, and I like to talk about more than just gold and silver and mining stocks, in that we're in an unprecedented time where things could go very south in terms of social stability very quick. And even if that doesn't happen, um, most people that were already barely hanging on, 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Most people that were barely hanging on are no longer holding on at all anymore. So when I have a successful business person on like yourself, I want to also extrapolate and pull out everything that I can. And I'm wondering, first of all, when you look at someone like Eric, what do you think the success principles for him that's made him a multi billionaire? What's made him so successful? And I'm sure it's something you think about too, because like we're saying, you're kind of methodical guy. Like, you've got the personal development mindset on, and you're watching all of these things. Let's start with him, and then we'll go to what are the important success principles that you live by and that you run Dolly Barton by.
So there was so Eric had some friends and some colleagues that he had brought on the trip. And there was one common characteristic between this group of gentlemen, which was they all gave back in a big way. They all came from humble beginnings, and their whole focus and goal in life was to add value to others, either through charities or through business. And I think that spirit of, if I can add value to you, that's gonna, like, it's the concept of like win-win-win, and not to bring it back to mining, but if you look at the area that we're in, where you've got the Nishka, the First Nations, okay, there is an 85% unemployment rate. So if we get a mining project going in their backyard, that's going to bring employment opportunities. That's going to be good for our shareholders. It's going to be good for our stakeholders that are the Nishka. So I think that Eric Sprott I don't know how much he talks about this, but the Sprott Foundation gives away a material amount of money on an annual basis, like a material amount of money. And, I just think that there's kind of a silly line. I was just on another site visit with another group of guys, and they use the term PSD. What do they look for when you're looking to align yourself with people? And it was poor, smart, and driven. And I came up for some pretty blue collar, humble beginnings, and I looked at the people that Eric had surrounded himself with, and they were all driven, and they're driven for the right reasons. They wanted to help people, and I think if Rick Rule talks about a turning point in his life when his wife told him about add value to your clients, right? And that's when his business had that exponential growth, right? And I just think that if you're helping people, it feels good, and you're winning for everybody. And that's my biggest takeaway from Eric's. The biggest thing I learned was, helping others, and how do we service others. And I think that's what's made him so successful. And it's he surrounded himself with some really good people that have integrity, that are honest, that are in it for the right reasons. And I think that is what sustains people over the long haul.
Yeah, that's a good Rick Rule story. I like that story too. And so right now we're in these pretty unprecedented times, and I want to know, what do you think are the best ways that one can prepare themselves and that one can ensure their freedom and their financial independence for themselves and their family.
I'm smiling on such a serious topic because I'm thinking of Gerald Salente right now, and he talks about gold, guns, and a getaway plan. I don't know. I just think if we went through a very unique time in 2020. We had to be mentally strong, we had to be physically strong, we had to be adaptable, and I think that just educate yourselves, right? Just and I think that you know, it, there, you know, we all have different means. Not everybody can go out and get a hobby farm and have a militia and be stacking gold and silver. So I just think we work together as a community and we help each other and we look out for each other and we educate each other and we teach each other. I think these are the principles. Like I'm really optimistic for the world ahead. Like I'm looking at this young generation and I'm impressed. They are switched on. They're kind, and I just think that it's our jobs to lead them, right? And that we got a bright future ahead of us, but we're going to go through some gnarly times. But you know what? This is the pain we should have went through in '08. We should have let things play out the way that we shouldn't have done this. You know, you know, selectively pick businesses that we were going to save and hurt others and inflate asset prices so that the 0.1% gets wealthier. This cleansing that's about to happen needs to happen. And I think the world's going to be great when we come through the other end of it.
Now, what do you think's next for silver? Uh, where do you think we're headed?
Well, I think it's going to be volatile. So I think, listen, we could wake up tomorrow and there could be this big deflationary event that smacks silver down to nothing, right, for a minute. But ultimately, that's just noise. This silver price is going to trade at an all-time high, and I think that over the next couple of years, we're going to see, triple-digit silver. I think we could see it within 18 months, but you have to prepare yourself that on the way there, it might trade lower. But I think silver is trading tremendously. If I were to make a bold call here, I think, unless we get some crazy deflationary, event, I think gold put in its bottom in the spring at 1650. I think we're moving higher. I think, you need to, if you're not invested in the space, you got to get allocated. And I think that, most of the world's not. And when they come, it's a small space and it's going to be violent and it's going to take these companies up, a lot higher. So my outlook for silver is really, really, really bullish. And I love the way it's trading right now. And I think the next big move on silver is through 30, and it probably runs up to about low 40s, and then we'll go after the old high. And once we go through that high, there's no such thing as a triple top, so it's gone, and it'll probably go up 50%. And it's going to be an exciting time for precious metals investors. And you look around the world right now, and you look at where some of these other assets are trading, whether it's the NASDAQ, the S&P, fine art, collectibles. You could have bought just about anything. You could have bought an old Porsche and done just as well as, being in gold and silver. But I think that's all going to change. And I think that, commodities are the place to be. And these two in particular with gold and silver give you the upside and hedge against inflation on the currency side. In the case of silver, you've got this growing industrial usages that make it sort of a two-headed monster. And for me, it's the best investment. And that's why, we're working hard at Dolly Barton to try to build this company as fast as we can, because it's going to be hard to to do some of the things that we have in our business plans. When silver is $50 an ounce, things are going to cost a lot more. So we want to build up that inventory as quick as we can.
Yeah, that's one thing also interesting too is just the effect that the mining business and in general from the inflationary environment that is really picking up. That'll be interesting to watch unfold. Now, where can we find Dolly Barton? Where you trading?
So, first of all, I encourage everybody to go check us out on Twitter at Silver Varden. We trade in Canada under symbol DV, in the US under symbol DOLLF, and we're going to be upgrading to a higher exchange in the US here imminently. And our website, dollyvardensilver.com. And again, there's a lot of catalysts that are coming. We did a lot of drilling throughout the summer. We're going to be reporting all those results. But look for us to grow this company dynamically, exponentially, and continue to further enhance the company here.
All right, Shaun Khunkhun, what's one thing you are grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for my family today.
Grateful for your family. Grateful for our conversation as well. For everyone listening to today's episode, I want to encourage you to check out Dolly Barton. We'll link website and Twitter, as Shaun mentioned, right there down below as well. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Send it out in the YouTube universe. Give us your price prediction for silver in 2022 right there down below. How long does it take for silver to reapproach its previous all-time highs? Let us know in the comments right there down below. We want to thank Shaun for coming on today. We want to thank you for listening to today's episode, and we want to thank Dolly Barton. So, Shaun, any last words?
Just your beauty, Jake. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to today's episode. We will talk to you soon.